So, tell me about where you killed him.
Killed him in Kentucky in 2009, October the 16th.
It was on private land.
It was private land. It was roughly about 280 acres. It had mix of corn, soybeans, cropland, but had strips of woods running through it. Just kind of funneled the deer down as far as the strips weren't very big.
And you didn't know, you didn't have no pictures. I know
No,
you
this
said
was
you had some pictures, but you never got in.
yeah, this was a friend of mine's land. We took the time off to go out there and hunt. Didn't know if it'd be any good or not, but we knew the Midwest was where the big deer were. And
Kentucky, I think around that time was the #1 boom Crockett state.
There was a lot of deer coming from there. So when we got out there, we rolled up in my uncle's camper, and had planned on staying for roughly about 5 days, about a week worth of hunting. And it was actually, as far as the temperature, it was cold for October there. So I think a lot of that had to do with the deer being on the feet. Yeah, I think so.
That one of them first good cold fronts in October.
And that day when we arrived, we unpacked everything and just kind of went out and rode. We had took the ATV, so we rode around the property and talked to the landowner about what he had seen, and kind of got a little intel from him as far as where the deer were, where he'd seen some bucks,
where he would hunt
and stuff. Yeah. And we went out that evening, scouted around a little bit, found some really nice rubs and pollens and stuff up on a ridge, and I had came back down. There was an old bridge crossing a creek, just basically a couple boards, and I seen a big deer track, monster deer track in the soil, in the sand and stuff underneath the bridge, and the banks were pretty high, so I figured, from my past experience, deer use up and down the creek. The smart deer will use, the older deer will use that creek as kind of a trail or a funnel. And but I put, basically on the first day, because of observation, what we needed to see and that kind of thing, we hung right on the edge of the field. So I was probably 15 feet off of the field, and we hung the stand, went back to the camper, and ate lunch, figured out where we were gonna hunt that.
I remember you telling me after you killed him that you thought you was in the worst spot.
We did, yeah, we did. There was me and my two buddies, and we put numbers in a hat, 3 numbers, and they drew out. I got the short end of the straw. I got the short straw, and I was third pick, so I got the worst stand is what I thought. Yeah, and I guess it was about. We messed around there for a little bit. Went and got in the stand about, I'm gonna say 2:30. I seen a doe come through, and then seen a coyote out in the field, and the landowner wanted us to harvest some coyotes if we could. That was kind of our token for being there too.
Helping with some predator control.
Yeah, for some predator control. And he said, or I seen the coyote and was watching it, and I looked over and I seen a really nice buck. I'm gonna say he was probably in the 150s, in a thicket. And as I seen him, I guess he seen me, or the wind was blowing that direction. But immediately when I seen him, he turned and whirled back and kind of ducked back into the thicket.
Back in the timber.
And I stood up and was going to try to get a shot on the coyote, and he ran off, just left, And I guess about 4 o'clock, 4:30. At this time in October, it was getting dark at 5:30, roughly, somewhere in there.
Yeah, the time had probably just changed.
Yeah, and about 4:30 or something, the landowner's cattle came through, and there was probably 6-8 head of cattle underneath me, rubbing up against the bushes, snapping limbs. I mean, I figured my day was over.
Go to the RV, go to the camp.
Yeah, I figured it was over. So at that, and the the creek was approximately 20 to 22 yards to my right, and I had not walked at the edge of the creek where I was hunting at, but the cows were down in the creek tromping around and stuff. So I was done hunting because it was so close to dark. I was going to get down. I took my release off and put it down in my pocket and started unpacking my stuff. But because I had seen that 150-inch deer, big buck over in the thicket earlier, and I'd seen those two does, I thought, well, I was going to leave my everything but my camera in case it rained. I was going to leave everything in the stand. So I was going to tape my bow onto my
Make sure
arm.
Gust of winds or whatever.
Didn't knock it off and stuff, yeah. And so I started doing that. I started getting my stuff packed up in my pack between my feet on the stand. And the cattle moved on at that time. And then I guess that maybe 10, 15 minutes later, I looked behind me on a logging road, and there was, the same way those cows had came a big doe. And it really didn't dawn on me at the moment I saw her, but as she passed me and I was watching her, she had a ruffled up place on her back where her hair was out of place.
Like she'd been mounted.
Yeah, and
didn't really think of it.
really big doe, but I really didn't put the puzzle together at the moment. Well, she traveled that logging road and went on out. She kind of veered up into the woods there, and I reached down in my pack and I opened my pack and I started getting my camera put in there. I had already took my camera off of the arm and put it in my pack, and I heard something. I heard water and something sounded like it was running in the water, and it was making a noise sort of like a pig, and I'd never heard that before. It was, you know. And as it come down the creek, I looked over to my right, and standing in the creek was this deer. And he was, you know, breathing heavy. His mouth was open. His tongue was hanging out. And he laid down in the only shooting lane that I had at the creek. He laid down
in the creek.
He laid down and he started wallering around, thrashing water up on him like a duck would in a pond. Yeah. And he laid there and he licked his tarsal glands and he was breathing real heavy.
God, man, if
that
you
gave
had
me
your camera on to get footage, that's something
yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen.
And
awesome
I seen it
footage.
one other time, and that was on a video of Michael Waddell.
Doing
The
same
buck
thing.
done the exact same thing. That's the only time I've ever seen it.
I'd love to
But
see
it's
that.
on one of those episodes. And so I reached in my pocket real quick on my scent lock pants, unzipped it, grabbed my release.
Good thing you remembered that you'd already took it off.
Yeah, and was putting it on as a buckle release, which is amazing that I was able to get it on and
That quick.
the breathing the way I was and that quick a time. But I flipped it on real quick. My bow was hanging there. I had to.
And you hadn't taped your bow yet.
No.
Thank God.
Yes. I had to stand up, turn into the tree to where the tree was in front of me. And right by the time all this happened, he stood up, and right when he stood up, I drew at the same time, hoping that he wasn't going to catch my motion, but I was up pretty high on
How
the
far
hill.
was he? 20?
Yeah, he was about 20. I'd say he was 22 yards, because that's what I ranged after I shot. And when I shot, I hit him low, but I didn't know that at the time. I just heard the smack.
I know you'd hit him.
I didn't even know that I'd hit him. I thought I did. I heard the smack, and I thought, yeah, I've hit him. Well, he takes off running down the creek, and I had a limb coming out from the tree there. I had my arrows separate from my bow and my quiver. I have to always take it off
Right.
so that my bow don't caddy to one side. Well, I reached over and grabbed another arrow, and the deer was probably 45 yards in the only other shooting lane that you could shoot. Yeah, on that creek. And he was standing there like a statue looking up the bank. Like I said, these banks had high walls. And he was standing there motionless, looking up the thing, looking up the bank. And yeah, honestly at the time, I didn't think it was worth a $45 arrow with a raised broadhead to shoot at him. But I thought he looked like a good enough deer, so I popped my other arrow on there, another arrow, and I drew back.
Your mind starts racing.
And it was so close to dark, I couldn't get a range through the limbs and stuff on him. and there was a couple limbs there, and I knew that those limbs were far enough away to where I thought my arrow would travel over them during the distance. Yeah. So I shot, and he was so far away, and the pins and everything, I just put all 4 pins basically on him. But I knew he was probably 40. I figured he was 40 to 45 yards. And when I released the arrow, it just felt good. And
yeah, you know when you 10 ring.
Yeah, I just felt that 10 or 12 ring, and it hit what I thought I heard hit, and he went up the bank and went barreling through there, and I heard crashing and breaking limbs and everything. And then it got quiet, and probably 3 minutes after that is when my buddy pulled up on the 4-wheeler, and
so much luck.
Yeah.
Stand, the release coming, you not taping your bow down, him coming minutes later.
Yeah,
there was a lot of luck on your way there.
Just flip it all the way over. And but I had climbed down, and just as I guess I say 3 minutes, but as soon as I shot that deer, I was stoked. I was excited. I was beyond belief. So I climbed down immediately and walked over. I just wanted to see if I'd at least hit him with the first arrow, because those rage, I stand behind them a lot.
Good heads.
Yes.
They've saved me a time or two.
And I walked over there. I found the first arrow. It was stuck in the bank on the other side. And when I seen it stuck on the bank, I thought, I missed. I figured the smack I heard was it hitting the bank. I seen a lot of white hair laying there. I was like, oh man. Well, I pulled the arrow out and looked, and it had real thin red blood on it. So I was like, well, I've at least hit him. And my buddy, that's right when I picked the arrow up, when he pulled up, and I said, man, he come down there. I said, come here. He wouldn't get off the 4-wheeler because of the coyote population out there. He was scared to get, my buddies are scared of coyotes, so they didn't want to get off the 4-wheeler.
Didn't want a pack to come around on him.
Yeah. So I said, no,
this
come
guy
here.
ain't this tall, so you.
I said, I've killed a really big deer. I said, I've killed Bullwinkle's dad. I said, come down here. I'm serious. He said, man, you crazy. He wouldn't believe me. He was in disbelief. We got down there. I showed him the arrow. He was like, wow, okay. We walked down the creek to the second arrow, or to the second spot where I thought I had hit him. And when we got to there was just, it looked like a paint can had exploded. There was blood everywhere. The arrow was laying in the creek, and it was just covered in blood.
He was quartering away at second shot, right?
Yeah, he was quartering away.
Hit him at the rib, and it came out.
Well, I hit him probably behind the last rib, and it came out right here in his armpit. So it covered everything. And there was blood everywhere. It looked like a moose had went up the bank, how big the track was, and then that's when my buddy started believing me of how big the deer was. And I shoved him up the bank. He grabbed on the limbs and got up the bank, and then he helped me up. And as I'm trying to get my way up there, he's going, oh my gosh, because there was blood everywhere up on top of the bank. So we started tracking him, and I told him, I said, man, just slow down. I said, slow down, because he was like a beagle dog, tracking a coon. I was like, slow down. I said, man, this is a once-in-a-lifetime deer, I believe. I said,
the last thing you want to do.
I said, I don't want to push it too hard, but there was blood everywhere. And there was some high grass and stuff in there. And we went probably into a half circle, about 60, 70 yards, and walked up on him. And, when I seen the rack holding his head up off the ground and everything, it was unbelievable. We sit and admired him for a few minutes, and we counted his points. We came up with 18 and 30 and all this, and I said, man, this is a very, very
I counted 22 without even trying a minute ago before we started. So
yeah. I'm
talking 22 or half inch or 3/4 or longer.
And he was a big deer. Weight-wise, probably, over 300 pounds, I feel.
Right there in my hand, I barely get around him. He's even bigger right here, I believe. Just as big.
He has a tight frame. He's only 19, and after the drying time and everything, he's 19 and 3/4 inch, almost 20 inches wide inside. he's got, I think 24. I think he's 24 points and he's 19 scorable points. He's got a lot of trash here, and then the split drops are awesome. He's got a little small drop here.
I'll go around him in a minute. Show it better. He's got some cool character.
He's got a lot of trash. He's
acre and whatever you want to call him. He's fours. I don't know what he done there, but that's cool. Adds to him, and then his bases are amazing. I'd like to see some of the trees he rubbed.
I did, and I wish I could go back to that property. It's been sold. I don't know to who, or I'm sure it probably changed hands a couple of times maybe, but some of the rubs that we found was this big around, and they were twisted. They were twisted in half and laying. There was brush piles laying. It looked like somebody went through there with a weed whacker or something.
Cut stuff down.
It was crazy, yeah.
I believe it. That junk right there is as bad as a chainsaw getting a hold of.
Yeah, he can do some damage to a tree, and that's why now that I think about it, after I found that sign, and I didn't hunt on the sign, because my buddy, we found the sign, but he drew the number. He drew the number, so he got to hunt the hottest spot. Right. But this deer wasn't going to come to that sign that day. He was coming down the creek.
He found probably one of the first. I mean, that early in October, you're probably looking at one of the first 1 or 2 does in the area to come in.
Yeah.
And he was making sure he wasn't leaving her.
He scores 184 and something change wise. He's almost 185 inches gross, and
he's got 190 inches of bone.
176 net. But he's got 190 inches. 10 inches, just 10 inches short of the 200 bill.
Real close in central Kentucky, in the bluegrass region, is where he was killed. Amazing deer. I'll go around him before we run out of time.
Okay. I hope you get it going good.
That's what I want. I mean, there's a lot of people who like to see deer like this, including me, you, and a lot of them are like this deer, right at borderline from being nationally recognizable deer, and a lot of people want to hear about them.
I remember the name of that magazine that guy said.
Said it was too small.
Yeah, and I mean,
wasn't big enough to be in it.
Yeah, I'll think of it. I'll tell you what it was, but.
And you can see those bases, man. That's just gnarly. And there's his brow. You can see I've got pretty big hands, and you can see what that looks like, and he carries it all the way out. Same thing over here. And carries it throughout. Then he's got these cool little, I don't know what you'd call them. They're really not acorns, but I've never seen one. They kind of look melted down. Honestly, don't they? It looked like he held a lighter to him in velvet and it just started to melt. And he's got all kinds of cool stuff right here around his veining. I'd never noticed that before. All them little.
Yeah, the worm-looking places and stuff. Yeah, from the velvet stage. Yeah, you can see it over here, little worm-looking places.
He's got all kinds, and he's got velvet.
Yeah, and that just added to the whole thing, man. To still have velvet on them.
Still got velvet right there. And he's a great deer, and it's the Chris Hensley deer, Chris Hensley buck. He is in B&C record books, or the Pope and Young B&C record books. And he's killed a few other good deer. Ohio, North Carolina. Killed a lot of really good deer in North Carolina, which is hard to do. Very hard to do. That's more of an accomplishment than killing a lot of deer in a lot of other areas. But that's it. I hope everybody likes looking at this giant as much as I do and hearing the story.